The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the spider with the human head, known as Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
Perfect. So yes, we're very excited. This is The Monster Squad, the movie we've been...
The Monster Squad!
We've been talking about this movie nonstop for the entire run of the podcast, so we're finally going to actually sit down and talk about it.
Yeah, now we get to shut up from now on about this one.
Probably not, but at least people will have the context of the whole story.
Right, 100%. So anyway, before we get into this thing, we're going to do a little bit of content warning. There's some fat jokes, some homophobia. You know, just be aware of that before we go into this. But other than that, it's a good time.
Yeah. This is not to like defend it too much as far as that goes, but this is a movie of the 80s and it has some very 80s language that, you see in a lot of movies from that time period that does not hold up so well today. Right. And yeah, we'll mention it as it comes through, but barring that stuff, yeah, it's a super fun ride that is it's one of my go-to movies. It's always just a lot of fun.
It is so much fun. But first things first, we open to a low storm with a text crawl referencing 100 years before the story begins. It's a time of darkness in Transylvania, quote-unquote, 1887. We've got that going on for us.
It's, that bit is so good. It's kind of like, Star Wars a little bit, like you got the crawl, but... it's really like dark and epic and talking about Van Helsing and all this stuff, and then it just ends. They blew it.
They blew it.
And so right away,
what kind of movie this is.
Exactly. That sets the tone perfectly. Like this is a movie that's going to play around with like dark stuff, but in a comedic way, but it manages to balance that really well.
Yeah. So we open with, we go further in, and we have this statue, the Grim Reaper statue, looks very menacing. Mm-hmm. And then that's when the title card Monster Squad appears.
Yeah, and you get like it's kind of a mix between like Universal and Hammer. You get the Gothic castle, you got like a coffin in a basement, there's like bats flapping around on the ceiling. There's also a single armadillo crawling around, which the original Universal Dracula had an armadillo in like one scene or two. Like, so it's calling back to that. So, and you got your flappy bats in the background, but your main bat that's like a kind of weird puppet that is not, not a normal bat.
Right.
And then we get like, it's not a normal transformation scene because it kind of cuts a few times. You don't get like a significant transformation. But you see that bat becomes Dracula.
Right. So I got to talk about the hand, or wing turning into a hand prosthetic was kind of cool.
Oh, it looks so good.
Yeah, so it's an elongated, looks like a bat wing or hand or claw, whatever you want to call it. And then it just slowly kind of retracts into that shape of a normal human hand.
Mm-hmm. And like that shot does so much of the heavy lifting as far as like the transition goes. Like having like seeing a bat, then seeing that hand scene, which is, like 3 or 5 seconds long. And then you just have Dracula, but just that hand, what's going on here.
Oh yeah. But also, immediately after that, we've gotten a bunch of villagers with the pitchforks and the torches and a stagecoach and apparently dynamite coming in. They are ready to fight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They like break into the castle, and like immediately we see like, you know, a traditional like vampire bride, a la Hammer, except she's just like eating a possum.
Right.
And
She's going to town.
yeah, blood all over her face. It's great. And then, you know, she gets shot with a crossbow. So like these villagers aren't playing around.
Right. They seem somewhat skilled, which, you know, it's very hilarious what happens at the end there.
Yeah, so we get like they kind of bring in this young girl, and she's like reading Latin, and you've got like there's like this altar with a sparkly jewel. We'll later, you know, they start referring to it as the amulet, but at the time you just see like weird beams of light coming out of this thing, and you get like undead skeletons breaking through the floor, attacking the villagers, and then like the black hole opens, sort of like a vortex that starts sucking stuff in, and then like it just sucks everything in, and that's it. Like,
right.
As this goes on, we'll kind of see more about like, oh, that's what they were trying to do, but this kind of sets the tone for like, this is what happened, and then just immediately like failure, cut to modern day. You know, you got like a school, you know, kids walking out front of the school buses, kids in the hallway.
That's when we first hear about the spider with the human head.
Yes.
Because Sean and Patrick have created this amazing creature. Sean is played by Andre Gower, who, you know, he's done some things, but he's mainly known for this movie and the documentary about this movie.
Yeah. They're like our sort of two main protagonists, and they are in the principal's office. They're in trouble because they just sit in science class and draw monsters instead of paying attention.
Well, that's because Miss Carson has a cat-shaped head.
Yeah, and like
Carlson.
Every time they talk about that, like I forget, and I'm like, what is a cat-shaped head? And then when you see her, it's just like, oh, her haircut just has kind of points, so it looks like ears.
Right. It looks like cat ears.
Her head is a normal human head. She just has pointy hair.
No. See, this was sequel bait for Monster Squad 2. What Miss Carlson is a werecat, and that's how they hit it. I'm just kidding.
I would
but
definitely
this
watch
is
that.
when we... Yeah, right. Exactly. One day. But yeah, this is when we get our first rounds talking about a bundle of sticks several times regarding friends. And then, of course, we get, quote-unquote, the fat kid Horace, who is made fun of because he is fat, and that's the only thing they got.
And yeah, and that there is a lot of fat phobic stuff with it, but that I will say that's not as egregious as the other F word that they use a bit,
right?
Because at least Horace kind of has like a story that builds, and like he sort of, you know, rises above being called that, and like he gets a really great moment at the end that kind of brings it all together.
I do kind of feel like this was, we're gonna drag Horace through the mud in the beginning because we're gonna make him badass at the end.
Yeah. And you know, the kids that are calling him fat kid are bullies. So like we're not supposed to like them or condone what they're saying.
By the way, one of the bullies is played by Jason Hervey, who played Wayne Arnold in The Wonder Years, big brother of Fred Savage in that show.
Yeah.
So that I think that, well, actually he had played it a little bit before this. I think it started and then he just
kept going. Yeah. But then we get like. So, you know, they're bullying him. They take his Snickers bar away from him, drop it on the ground, and step on it. And then we get the entrance of, like, the resident cool guy of the movie, Rudy, who, you know, rolls up with his leather jacket and sunglasses on.
Rudy the Fonz. Yeah. By the way, this dude's got some big shoulders because he does some heavy lifting, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. So, yeah, he rolls up and, like, is, you know, instantly, like, defending Horace. And like go so far as to like, I mean, he shuts the bullies down. He's like, "Hey, it looks like you dropped your candy bar," and they're like, "No, that's not ours." And he's like, "Eat it."
Oh yeah, it is. yeah, it is. Eat it.
And like he has enough like cool guy power that like these bullies do it. And it's, I mean, you know, right away like you get like. Rudy is like the guy who's going to stand up for the little guy and like help out, and like I mean they immediately make him just so lovable. Like you gotta root for somebody who's going to help out this kid being bullied.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, Rudy is amazing. He has a couple problems later there.
Yeah,
you know, we'll get to that, but they're not okay. They're kind of egregious, but
more of that like 80s stuff that like happened a lot.
It's very 80s. This is very common for the 80s. What he does.
So then we pretty much cut to like Sean and Patrick. They're walking home and are arguing about the Wolfman. Like, what does he do? Yeah. What does he do on his off days, basically?
Yeah, he has to wear pants, right? Because he has a wolf dork.
Yeah,
that's the worst image, I think. Yeah, but also, can he drive? I think they talk about. And,
yeah,
it's just normal things.
Yeah, it's the kind of, I mean, if you're listening to this show, like, it's the kind of conversations you've definitely had before in the past. Like we've all been there, just like geeking out about monsters and talking. I mean, that's what we're doing right now is talking about monsters.
Dun dun dun. Yeah, exactly.
But they also mention this like mysterious neighbor that they just refer to as Scary German Guy.
Right.
And I don't think he ever gets another name. He's just Scary German Guy. Although, like, he does get... I mean, his story is really, really cool. Like, he kind of has a really nice arc in this.
He is also kind of low-key badass.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's it. He's titled Scary German Guy.
And we haven't actually met him yet. They just kind of, like, point out his house and talk about how they're all afraid of him. He's just, like... there's just always, like, the neighborhood spooky house or weird neighbor or whatever, and he's theirs.
Right, and I swear, when little Phoebe... Sean's little sister comes in, I swear that she said Gary Truman Guy. I was like, what? Oh, whatever. But yeah. So, we're not at war with Germany because, this guy's all right. He's got to be. Turns out we're still at war at Vietnam in 1987 because Phoebe has been watching too much Rambo. To be fair... At that point in time, well, okay, probably a year or two later, I was watching too much Rambo as well, so...
Sure.
I can respect that.
And Phoebe is a really great character because, like, it's pretty common for a kid-type movie to have, like, the annoying little sister character, and she is that, but she really transcends that. Like, she's... I mean, especially as the movie goes on, but, like... She's not like a one-note, just annoying, bratty sister like you have seen in other movies.
No, yeah, she definitely has some depth to her, which is more than any other bratty little sister that you will normally ever see.
Yeah. So, like, we kind of get all the kids sort of, like, meeting up here on the street, and Horace shows up. And
yeah, he does a little jump scare.
Yeah.
He just hops out of the hedges.
Yeah, and he's excited because he thinks that Rudy wants to join the Monster Club. And
who wouldn't?
Yeah. And Sean and Patrick are both skeptical, which is great because it's like, I mean, like, it's pretty quickly established, like, Rudy's the cool guy. And, like, it seems like anybody would be like, oh, man, he would give us so much credibility. But they're like, but does he have the monster credentials? Like, can he hold his own in the Monster Club? We're not going to take anybody just because they're cool. Like, he's got to...
We have a solution. We have the monster test. So they're going to give Rudy the monster test to see.
Yeah, but before we get to that, we cut away to two pilots who are, like, flying this plane. And they kind of mentioned it's like an old... I think, did they say it's like a World War II plane or something?
Yeah, I don't remember if they mentioned it's like a B-52, but that kind of it gives you the feel that this thing's kind of old and rickety. I think maybe they do say that actually.
And they're they're kind of just acting a little nervous. This is a weird job they've been on. We don't have much details, but they've been given some like crates that they're trying to fly across the ocean, and they kind of they're just like, well, we got to just get the job done. Let's not worry about it. But then there's some weird noises from the cargo bay, and
this is stereotypical. If you're in a plane and you're a pilot, and this is a horror movie, it's bad news for you, buddy.
Yeah,
just get out of there. But of course, I guess we could call him the main pilot, or at least one of the co-pilots, says, "Hey, I'm gonna go check out what's back here. I'll be right back."
Yeah.
And he goes back and he finds a giant rat on some of the crates back here.
Yeah.
But immediately after that, he gets buzzed by this giant bat.
And yeah, of course, we've previously seen a giant bat in this movie, and of course, that giant bat becomes Dracula.
But they show in such a cool way. like immediately after he buzzes it, the pilot like drops down, and as he was rising, you see Dracula right behind the pilot. Mm-hmm. So you're like, this pilot is dead.
Yeah. But instead, like, the pilot is kind of a quick thinker. He like pulls the like cargo bay doors basically, and it falls open, and there's a crate that's labeled Bavaria Frankenstein. And it falls out, but Dracula just like floats in midair.
Right. It's like, good try. Good try. Didn't work, but good try. But he doesn't immediately kill the pilot. He turns into mist and then a bat and flies out of the plane in broad daylight.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess maybe in this version, bat form Dracula is okay in the sun.
Maybe this Dracula is so powerful the sunlight doesn't bother him. Who knows?
Yeah. But ultimately, the big crate crashes into like a swamp, and the Dracula bat kind of flaps down to the crate. And then we cut back to the monster test already underway.
Right.
You've got all the kids. They're in a tree house together. And Rudy is like only kind of half paying attention. They're asking him pretty basic monster questions, nothing too out there. And he's answering for the most part pretty well, but he's kind of distracted because he's got a pair of binoculars and is spying on a girl changing in a window across the way.
Yeah. Bad Rudy. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, once again, this is the 80s. Sex stuff was funny.
Yeah, it's definitely the time of like Porky's and Revenge of the Nerds, and like it was just par for the course at the time. Not that it's okay, but like like the fact that this is in like a kids movie kind of shows you how just like normal it was. Like this wasn't Porky's that's like specifically dirty. Comedy. Yeah, this is a kids movie, and it's just like, oh, this is just boys being boys, kind of light fun, nobody gets hurt, but of course it's not okay. It's definitely not okay.
Yeah. But we're also introduced to Eugene for the first time. Eugene is the smallest, youngest kid in the Monster Squad, and for some reason he's wearing a Confederate cap. Ooh. Don't know what that's about, but he does.
Yeah, there was a time when like Confederate stuff wasn't so like latched onto by a specific kind of person. It's still still not great, but it just kind of was like, oh, there was a time when it almost did feel like, oh, this is just history, and now it doesn't feel that way anymore.
Nope.
But yeah, and Eugene is he's so great. Like he's just a little bit off. He's a little weird, weirder than the rest of the Monster Kids, but he adds a really nice layer of comedy to the movie.
Right? And he has a great scene at the end, but sorry, I'm getting ahead. But we get Phoebe is actually trying to bust into the Monster Squad. Of course, no girls allowed because that's how that goes. And she says, "Not letting me in is what is it? Prescription or something like that?"
Yeah.
So I thought that was a great joke.
Yeah, he's like, it's not prescription, it's discrimination. And we don't care. We're going to discriminate. You can't come in. But before the fight can kind of continue, they both get called in for dinner. So Sean and Phoebe head inside. Sean's mom has a book for him that she found at some kind of estate sale thing. And it's a book written by Van Helsing. And the mom's
Who's
like...
a real person.
Yeah, he just really exists, and this is his diary. And the mom's like, he's the guy that fights Godzilla, right?
Yeah. No, silly, it's Dracula. He fought Dracula. Of course, Sean corrects her because he's the monster nerd.
Yeah. And she's like, well then, so who's the really tall one? And she's like, that's Godzilla, Mom. But, so if Van Helsing is real and really wrote this diary, then does she think Godzilla is real too?
I mean, are you surely saying he's not? But also, that does beg another question as to why it isn't just assumed that all monsters and things are real. Because if he's a normal guy, or maybe it's kind of like, oh, Van Helsing was a real person, but none of the stuff he did was real. He was just,
Yeah, there's a story about him or something.
He was an adventurer of the 1800s or something like that.
Yeah, he's like a Davy Crockett or something.
Yeah. Maybe, who knows? But of course, the fact that she got it at this weird house on Shady Brook, the estate sale from the Shady Brook mansion, is kind of kind of worrying, but we'll see what happens with that.
And Sean is kind of bummed to find out when he opens the book that it is in German, so he's not going to be doing any reading of it anytime soon.
Because Van Helsing.
Yeah.
But then we cut to Dracula driving this badass, I'm going to call it the Monster Mobile.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I wanted a hearse, and it was definitely because of this. Like, I was like, when I grow up, I'm going to drive a hearse.
Right, and it has a skull ornament on the front.
Yeah, it's like this big chrome. It's great. And he like just kind of parks on like a hillside looking out over the city, and he's just like, let it begin.
Lightning flashes, and then you like literally see his skull on the inside of his skin. Like they show that because you have to, I guess.
Yeah.
They were like, let's ham this up.
And then we get Sean asking his dad if he can go to the movies tonight because Groundhog Day Part 12 is coming out.
Gosh, could you imagine how miserable Bill Murray would be making that movie? But they mentioned that the guy is a killer, so what happened to Bill Murray's character in Groundhog Day? Did he literally go insane?
See, I just took it to be like, there's Halloween and there's Friday the 13th and there's My Bloody Valentine. So like in their universe, there's a Groundhog Day themed horror series and movie. They just, because those series escalate to having so many movies that they're already up to number 12 in the Groundhog Day series.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's what's going on, but it would be so much funnier if it was Bill Murray's character.
Yeah, if it did just keep going, he just slowly goes insane, and by like 3 or 4, he's just a slasher now.
Right. I mean, yeah, they even mentioned that, they killed the guy in the last one, right? That's when they blew him up. No, that was the one before that.
Yeah.
He's back again because Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then we find out that Sean can't go because he has to babysit Phoebe. And the reason is because the parents their marriage is kind of on the rocks and they're going to see a counselor.
By the way, great way to slide that one in. That's for the parents, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know who that one's for. It's like, let's add some super drama to it.
Yeah, it is strange. Like, I mean, I think this movie is mostly aimed at kids. I guess maybe like this was the time period where like divorce was kind of on the rise and kids were kind of having to like deal with that, and maybe they thought they could like kind of handle it in a way, or I'm not sure, but yeah, it seemed weird. Like, this is kind of a fun, just kind of spooky movie, and then like we have some stuff with the parents. Gets pretty intense.
It does. And like if you're a kid, you're not going to ever notice this. It's going to fly right over your head.
For sure.
And then it's like, there's some stuff going on behind the scenes of this one.
Yeah. And it seems like basically the problem is so the dad's a cop and he's really dedicated to his job, and his job is really kind of like horning in on his family life. And, obviously the mom feels neglected, and, to make matters worse, he ends up having to skip the marriage counseling because there's some weird stuff going on. We get there's a guy who shows up at the police station claiming to be a werewolf and getting in fights with cops because he wants them to lock him up. So, very Larry Talbot kind of stuff going on there. And then we also find out that there's a mummy that has gone missing from the History Museum.
Right. Yeah. And then that's when we're introduced to Rich, who is the partner of Sean's dad. Dale, I believe, is his name. And he's basically making fun.
Oh, man, Rich is the best. Like, he is
the best.
Like, he's the only adult who's, like, fun in this movie. He just has, like, a great sense of humor. He's definitely the best adult in the movie. Well, scary German guy and Rich. But, yeah, he's making jokes and, basically they end up at the museum and they're like, but a 2,000-year-old dead guy doesn't just get up and walk away.
Right. Did you... He goes to the security guard and he's like, did you take him?
Yeah. So they kind of, like, banter a bit, and then it immediately cuts to the 2,000-year-old dead guy walking away, just like,
right,
doing the whole mummy slow walk beside the street. But then an ambulance speeds past, and in the back of the ambulance is what we think is a dead body that then quickly wakes up, and it's
because it's the full moon.
Yeah. So the werewolf who was, got in a fight with the cops and got shot down was being sent to the morgue prematurely because, he just wolfs out and wakes up. and attacks the ambulance driver.
By the way, the Wolfman in this is credited as Larry Talbot. Also played, this is John Grease, who is Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite, if you're into that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, I definitely did not catch that one. Yeah, so we got, basically, the dad shows back up at home then after interviewing the security guard at the museum, and Sean is, like, up on the roof of the house watching the Groundhog Day movie through binoculars.
Right,
because it's on a drive-in.
Because it's a drive-in.
Yeah.
Because it's a drive-in, and you apparently could tune into the radio. I don't remember it having that long a range, though, because it's like the drive-in theater is down in a valley.
Oh, yeah.
They're pretty far away, it looked like. But, of course, Dad comes in, and he's got some old-style, like, 1980s Burger King. Because product placement. There's a lot of that. We're not going to talk about all of it, but...
Yeah, so they kind of have a nice chat up on the roof, passing the binoculars back and forth, watching the movie. Which, he's clearly a good dad. He's failing as a husband, but he does really seem to care about his kids and do what he can for them, even, if his work takes him away from the house a lot.
I mean, he seems like he's being a good cop, but, I'm guessing, or as good a cop as you can be, but he's just failing on the husband front. Everything else is doing really well.
Yeah. And then we get the ambulance crash, and Rich is there, and they find that the body is missing from the back of the ambulance. I think he calls and does he tell Del that, or is he just?
Yeah, well, he talks to some other policeman, and they're like, "Oh, you're missing 2 bodies tonight, huh, Rich?" And because the mummy as well.
Yeah.
So.
And then then we get back to the monsters. And
the Wolfman's wandering through the swamp.
Yeah, so the Wolfman and the mummy kind of both just show up at the swamp where Dracula is. It's almost like, something, Dracula sort of called them forward somehow. He kind of holds his hand out, and the coffin just sort of seems to rise out of the swamp, and it's he has some sort of telekinesis, but no.
It's the Gill Man.
Yeah.
The creature from the Black Lagoon.
So yeah, the creature lifts the coffin or the crate out of the swamp and sets it down on shore. And this movie, I believe it is Universal co-production kind of thing. They're part of it, which really this makes it the only Monster Rally Universal movie where the creature from the Black Lagoon mixes with the rest of the the monster universe, because the creature movies kind of came out after all the other stuff had already happened, and the character design on the Gill Man for this is so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously they've updated. Well, it's going to sound like a slam, but it's not. It was everything was updated for the 80s.
Oh yeah,
the Wolfman was scarier. He wasn't just a guy with hypertrichosis. He was a wolf man.
Yeah,
and then you had the Gillman, who was a, Precambrian or whatever they call it, fish human hybrid monster.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely it looks enough like the original that you immediately know what it is, but it's definitely the scary factor is amped up a little bit, and it just looks a little more real.
Well, even with the mummy, it looks almost like a crypt keeper puppet.
Mm-hmm.
Just with a human actor.
Yeah.
So everything's a little bit more creepy. I think the only thing is that Dracula is not don't get me wrong, he gets there. But, it's he is the Dracula's Dracula, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's got the widow's peak, the slicked back hair, he's got everything Dracula should have, right? But this is the 1940s Dracula versus any Dracula we're going to find today, especially the one in the 90s with the Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it is. He's definitely only borrowing from Lugosi, and it doesn't modernize as well as the rest of the stuff does.
But it doesn't need to, does it?
Yeah. It works well for the context of this, for sure. And he does do this really cool thing. He has a cane that's got kind of a wolf head on the handle, kind of similar to the one that the Wolfman gets killed by in the old, the original. Mm-hmm. But this one has these sort of clips that kind of come out of the ears of the wolf.
Right.
And so he like clamps those onto each of the bolts on Frankenstein, and then just holds the cane up in the air.
Yeah. Lightning strikes him and he jumps Frankenstein, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of similar to like the Abbott and Costello thing, but like, you know, it's so much cooler than just the little ring that does it. You got this like lightning rod thing back, like it's like a car jumper cable kit, basically.
Right. And as Frankenstein, the Frankenstein monster, we're just going to call him Frankenstein because he is a Frankenstein, as we've already established. Yeah, Dracula kind of gives Frankenstein a loving, friendly look. Mm-hmm. Like they're old buddies.
Yeah. And Frankenstein, like he says, like, long time, master.
Right. So we already know where the relationship is in that regard.
Yeah. So yeah, we get that, and then we pretty much cut away back to Sean's house, and you got their mom. She's comforting Phoebe. There's like a storm. She's just kind of like tucking her in bed and talking to her for a few minutes. They talk about her stuffed bunny rabbit Scraps. They're really great. She says something like, "Are you going to yell at him?" And Phoebe is talking about Sean for scaring her, but the mom thinks she's talking about their dad, and she's like, "Honey, I love your father. Of course I'm not going to yell at him." And then she immediately goes outside and yells at him.
Right. Well, yeah, and Phoebe's like, "Yeah, I meant Sean." But yeah, I mean, immediately they get in a fight. Like it gets pretty heated, pretty intense, and it almost sounds like there might almost be some domestic abuse coming from Dale. So, bad Dale, don't do that.
Yeah. And of course, Sean is overhearing all of this. He's like, in the next room and is awake. But then he sees a dry erase board by the phone. And kids, this is what we used to do. We'd have like a little notepad or a dry erase board or a chalkboard by our landline phone that was stuck to the wall and you couldn't move it. And you put little notes there.
Yeah.
That's how you know if somebody called for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And in this case, it was Mr. Alucard from school. He wants to know about Van Helsing's book.
Yeah. He maybe wants to buy it, and there's like, possible money, dollar signs and stuff. And Sean like kind of looks at it for a minute and writes out Alucard on a piece of paper, and then,
he's seen Son of Dracula. We know Alucard is Dracula spelled backwards.
Yeah, but he has to do the math, and he figures it out, and he's like, oh no,
I'm not going to lie. The first time I played Symphony of the Night, and I realized that, I was like, that's amazing! Because I hadn't seen Son of Dracula or anything like that at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, how did Dracula find out that Sean had the book?
Yeah.
Is there a deleted scene?
Yeah, I guess I don't know if the sale was still going on and he went there and tried to buy it. It's kind of unclear.
Right.
But he's definitely interested in getting this book back. And then we get this, cuts to a scene with Eugene and his dad at his house. And like it's just like building to this great little sight gag. So Eugene like tells his dad that there's a monster in the closet, and the dad comes in and is like, "Oh, get out of here, monsters," and like acting like they're invisible monsters. It's imaginary. And he's like, "All right, I think they're all gone." And he's like, "Nope, it's in the closet."
One more in the closet.
And so the dad opens the closet door, but he's not looking in the closet door.
He just opens the door and steps to the side. It's like, see, there's no monsters. Well, turns out there's a mummy right there. And had he looked, he would see the mummy, but of course he doesn't.
Yeah, and so then like he kind of like turns away and is like, "Everything's fine, you're okay." And meanwhile, the mummy like crawls out the window. You don't see it; you just see like the bandages getting pulled out as the mummy's already made his way out.
Okay, at this point, like aside from the Wolfman actually killing someone, it seems like these monsters are relatively chill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But knowing what we know later, Eugene could have died there. He really could have died there.
Yeah.
And his dad would have felt stupid. I'm just saying. But
yeah.
At this point, the Monster Club is deciding they need a name change. Sean's like, we need something more official, something that has gravitas to it, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to be the Monster Squad now.
Yes. Yeah, Monster Club just sits around and chats about monsters, but the Monster Squad's got to get down to business and like, save the world from the monsters.
Right, because he immediately assumes Dracula is real now because some guy named Mr. Alucard calls him.
Yeah, and he's like,
It's
I heard. Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
like their logical jumps, right? It's like, wait a second.
yeah, and he does also have the clues that he heard that there was a guy saying he was a wolf man, and
That's true,
that
yeah.
the mummy has gone missing from the museum.
Yep.
So he's like,
So he's putting pieces together.
yeah, something's going on around town, and we got to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
But they realize that the first step has got to be, we got to figure out what's in this book. And of course, putting two and two together here, we've got a book that's in German, and we've got a scary German neighbor. Maybe he might be able to help us out.
First, it's Patrick's sister, because she learned German in high school, or she's learning German in high school.
Oh yeah, and then we get a dicey line there where he says, "Your sister doesn't speak German. All she does is hang around and let guys touch her tits."
Grab her. Yep.
And Rudy's like, what? He's
Right.
suddenly
Of course Rudy's
interested.
interested now.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Rudy's a little bit, I think the thing is Rudy's a little bit older than the rest of the kids. So they kind of like make him really like the horny kid. Cause like they want it to be like, he's the one who's gone through puberty. The rest of the kids are still fully in monster mode cause they're not there yet. But
Right.
anytime there's like any possibility to sexualize something, Rudy is ready and waiting.
He's there. Yeah. But of course, he's like, your sister wouldn't happen to live right next door, would she? And of course, Patrick's sister does indeed, or they live right next door.
Yeah.
It turns out the girl from earlier was Patrick's sister.
Yeah. So Rudy is definitely interested now.
Yeah. He's sold. He is officially a card-carrying member of the Monster Squad.
Yeah. Then we get like Dracula talking to Frankenstein, and he's basically like, we got to get this diary from the kids. So go do whatever you have to do. Get the diary. If you got to kill the kids, kill the kids. I don't care. We need that book.
Yeah, Frank, you gotta take the kids out, even, or get it one way or another, right?
Yeah. So we get that, and then we're back to the kids, and they are in front of the scary German guy's house, kind of like psyching themselves up to like go knock on the door. They're like, but we don't know what his deal is, and then they say, but well, what's German for "don't murder us, please"?
Right. And then immediately we get the German for "don't murder us." I don't remember what that is, but he sure says it.
Yeah. So he was out. He wasn't even in the house, and he just strolls up behind them.
And then we cut to Phoebe playing in the field.
Oh
and,
man, it's such a good
Maria.
scene.
Maria moments.
Yeah, so you get Phoebe, she's kind of playing in, yeah, she's kind of even sitting by a lake. It's kind of off to the end. You just see Frankenstein approaching, and anybody who's like familiar with Frankenstein movies is going to be like, oh, I know where this is going. But before anything happens, we cut away, and we're back to the kids. This movie does a really good job of like ratcheting up the tension by cutting back and forth from scene to scene.
It does. And then at this point, we get to hear the German guy say, "Boys, this is your last chance for pie."
He's like holding a big knife pointing right at the camera, and he's like, your time is almost up. And then, he's just trying to serve him pie. So
that's it. He's a nice old man.
Yeah, so he may look scary, but he's actually a very friendly German guy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's game. Like, he's just like, sure, I'll translate this book for you. And like, he's just reading all this stuff about like, okay, so there's an amulet. It balances good and evil. There's a ritual that happens every 100 years.
It can be broke, or a ritual can be done and it'll banish all evil. Turns out maybe that's what Van Helsing was trying to do, and he mucked that one up.
Yeah, that's funny. His last entry was 100 years ago. From
today.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. So, and like, he's just on board. Like, he's like, it's nice. Usually in these kind of movies, it's like the kids all know what's up and the adults are all idiots who just won't listen. But he's just like, all right, we got to figure this out. He's just ready to help.
Yeah, but the stakes are, if the monsters get to the amulet at this point, at 12 o'clock midnight tomorrow, they can actually destroy the amulet, and then all evil wins.
Yeah.
So those are your stakes. Either A, we seal evil away for good, or B, the monsters destroy the amulet, or C, we screw up and somebody else has to deal with this 100 years later.
Yeah. And then we get like this scene is just like such a subtle little moment that like I'm sure most kids aren't going to get this, and there's no real reason for it to be there, but it's such a beautiful little thing. So like, you know, the scary German guy's letting the kids, letting them out of the house, and he's like, I bet you kids thought I was some kind of monster or something. And they're like, yeah. And he was like, well, if I was a vampire, I wouldn't have a reflection, would I? And there's like, a mirror. And Horace is like, man, mister, you sure know a lot about monsters.
Yep, he sure does.
Yeah, he's like, now that you mention it, I suppose I do. And as he closes the door, you see that he has like a Holocaust tattoo on his forearm. So, he's a Jewish guy who lived in Germany and, has moved to America now. He's he's a survivor of the Holocaust, and like, of course he knows what real monsters are. Like we've got our fun Dracula and Frankenstein story, but like, we know
humans are the real monsters.
Yeah.
But also, how good of storytelling is this? That in just those few lines, so much about this old guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, he says one sentence, and you get, like, 2 seconds of seeing that tattoo, and you know everything you need to know.
Right. So, yeah, he's definitely seen some monsters. But to go away from the serious thing, we've got to find a virgin to recite the words. Because a virgin girl, apparently, needs to recite the words to seal away the monsters.
Yeah. So they're discussing, and they're like, well, Patrick, maybe your sister, like, she could read it.
Yeah, and Rudy's like, yes, she can read it. Yes, she is the one that we're going to find to read it.
Yeah, let's get her in the mix as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But as they're discussing this, they're like walking home, and like they get back to the house, and Phoebe's like, hey guys, come here, and they're just ignoring her, and she's like, come here, and they all turn, and Frankenstein steps from around the treehouse tree, looming over little Phoebe, and all the boys just like take off running.
Right, because they know what's up, but that's pretty mean that they leave the little sister there to basically die.
Yeah, they're like jumping fences. I think Horace like ends up inside a trash can. Like they're not sticking around for this.
But of course Phoebe gets a great line. This is a great line. She says, "Come on, guys, we're friends. Don't be chicken shit."
Yeah. And so, yeah, she just, like, is holding Frankenstein's hand and walks him over to the boys. And she's like, now can I be in the Monster Club?
Yep, you sure can. You have your very own Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So.
And so then we get all the Monster Club, including the 2 new members, Phoebe and Frankenstein. That's right. And they're all just kind of hanging out in the treehouse. And we find out that Phoebe has taught him to talk a little bit. He's like looking.
He kind of knew already, but she added some phrases to his vocabulary.
Yeah, so he's looking through a camera that's like up in the window and happens to see Patrick's sister changing a little bit, and like accidentally hits the camera button and it flashes and scares him. And he's like, bogus.
Yeah.
So that's
what she's been teaching.
Yeah, so he's learning some 80s slang. You gotta love that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get such a sweet moment with him where like the Monster Club, the treehouse is full of like monster stuff. There's just cool monster stuff everywhere, and he sees like a Frankenstein mask and like picks it up and is like looking at it, and then kind of like touches his own face and kind of looks sad, like and he just says scary, like.
Right. He knows what that's for.
Yeah, like he realizes like this is a mask people wear to look scary, and it's made to look like me, so I guess I'm scary.
Right. But can we talk about that freaking mask? Because I swear I had one like that as a kid. And it had the stupid like plastic latex outfit that you put on over it.
Oh, yeah, those things, they were like now, like for nostalgia's sake, those things are so cool, but like at the time, like they're so dumb. Like this was like a big thing when we were kids. Like it was a plastic mask, just covering the front of your face with like an elastic band around the back of various monsters, or like I think I had one that was Big Bird when I was really little. I did like the mask was just Big Bird's face, but then the suit was just like a plain white sort of plastic suit that just had a picture of Big Bird on the front of it. If
it was basically just a trash bag that they tailored, right?
Yeah, pretty
much.
Versus
the one nowadays that they actually put effort into.
Yeah. But like, yeah, they were all like that, where it would just have a picture of the character on the chest of it which is, Big Bird doesn't walk around wearing a t-shirt of himself, and Frankenstein doesn't walk around with a t-shirt of himself either. And,
Yeah.
but yeah.
But that was the 80s, kids. Don't let anyone tell you it was that great, because now it's better.
Yeah.
It was fine, but yeah, it's better now. But then they have a little E.T. walk off into the dusk. The whole Monster Squad in silhouette. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. And then we get like Dracula and the Wolfman. They are in the house, the Shadowbrook Lane house, looking for the amulet. And Dracula ends up like breaking down a wall.
Yeah, he has amulet sense.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Right.
And yeah, so you see like the amulet. It's on that pedestal like we saw earlier, and it's like sparkling all these crazy like beams of light. And Dracula's like, my plan's coming together. He says something like, soon
no one can stop us now.
Yeah, the creatures of the night will rule the world and all that. It's the villainous moment where he's like, rubbing his hands together like we're one step away from victory.
Right. And honestly, at this point, I'm like, if the monsters are like these monsters, that's not so bad. Well, that changes later, but at the point, it's like, yeah, that seems fine.
Yeah.
But then we go, because this is the 80s, we have to have one montage. We get 80s Rock Until You Drop, which is a bop, I gotta say.
Yeah, this movie I think it has like 2 original songs. You got this, and then you got the end credits Monster Squad rap song, and they're both just
because
so
it's the
wonderful.
80s. Because it's the 80s, you have to have a rap at the end.
Yes.
Late 80s. The late 80s, I should say.
But yeah, so the montage is just them sort of getting ready for this like fight with the monsters. So most of it is really Rudy, but you get everybody else doing stuff.
Rudy's actually putting in work for the whole thing. He's the one who's carrying everyone, because initially he's making stakes, wooden stakes.
Yeah, he's in the wood shop, and it's like the wood shop teacher goes around and he's like making it like a box, and as soon as the teacher walks away, he's like grinding down wooden stakes.
Right. And then it cuts to Phoebe playing dress up with Frankenstein. You know, that's cute. Okay, that's funny. All right, then you get Eugene with his Confederate cap writing a letter to the army in big crayon letters like, "Hey, army guys, come help us fight monsters." Okay, that's fine. Now Sean, being the ADHD child that he is, that I would do, instead of doing something constructive, he makes business cards.
Yeah. Yeah,
can't fault him there.
Printing out business cards using the school printer, hiding in the teacher's lounge. We've all been there.
Yeah. Then Rudy makes silver bullets. Apparently he used Sean's mom's silverware to do it.
Yeah, because it cut to her looking at the good silver box and it's all empty.
Right. Then they start mapping out Shadowbrook Lane. And then, of course, Rudy, because he's the only one putting in actual work here, goes to steal a bow and arrow at the archery range. No one notices. He just walks up to the guy, slowly just drops down, grabs the stuff, and walks off.
Yeah. And so then we got everybody kind of back together, and they are at the photo mat, getting the developed photos. And again, kids, back then you had to take pictures and go to Walgreens or whatever, and they would develop them for you within an hour, and you just had to wait around.
Right, you couldn't develop them yourself. Not then you couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, have someone else do it. But it turns out there's a sister of Sean, or a picture of Sean's sister.
Patrick's sister.
Patrick's sister.
Yeah, and Rudy
that would be worse.
Oh, yeah. No. But yeah, Rudy, happens upon the photo of Patrick's sister and is like, So that was the one that Frankenstein accidentally took. He's like, I'm going to hang on to this.
But then Frankenstein somehow gets it away and keeps it in the air. So apparently all the kids, even Phoebe, want to see it. Don't know what that's about. I understand well, whatever, Good
curiosity,
for them. Yeah, curiosity, yeah.
So then we get the group, they sort of split up, and we've got Sean, Horace, and Eugene, and they are at Shadowbrook Road, and we find out that the address is actually 666 Shadowbrook Road.
Of course it is.
And they're with Frankenstein, actually, and they're there to find the amulet. And Frankenstein kind of warns them. He sort of has some sort of connection to Dracula and is like, Master is near. Master wants children dead.
Right.
So they're obviously kind of freaked out. They're a little scared, but Sean's like, we got to find the amulet. That's what we have to do this. Then I'm not sure really what happens. Like the ceiling just like kind of collapses and falls in on Frankenstein, and they just kind of have to leave him.
Right, yeah. It's like, oh, he's somehow dead. Apparently it knocked him out.
Yeah, and like obviously the kids can't lift up all the, like it's the beams falling in all of the Universal movies, but he's like just trapped under all this rubble. And like if there was just a yard sale at this house like a week ago, it seems weird that it is this in disrepair, but I don't know, maybe, Dracula breaking that wall down like caused some structural integrity issues. But yeah, either way, Frankenstein is sort of like out of commission for the moment. And unfortunately, right as he kind of gets taken off the board, the Wolfman shows up.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then we get what probably the most famous line from this movie.
Oh yeah, we got to kick him. Wait, was it that or that came later, didn't it?
So it's like he kind of like corners. He corners Horace, and Sean's like, kick him in the nards, and like. He's like, no, I can't. And he's just like, kick him in the nards. And then he does. And like the Wolfman like doubles over in pain. And
because Wolfman's got nards.
Wolfman's got nards.
I love it.
Which kind of confirms their whole like wolf dork thing from earlier.
Yeah.
So. And so, but they end up at this like 3-way hallway where like suddenly the Wolfman's coming at them from one way, Dracula's coming from another way, and like the vampire brides are coming from the other way. So they're just kind of like stuck, and like Horace is just kind of freaking out, like we can't go anywhere, we're stuck. And Sean's a little bit more resourceful, and there's a statue on the wall, and he just starts kind of like poking at it and prodding and pulling on things. And Horace is like, what are you doing? He's like, haven't you seen the Hardy Boys?
All right, but real quick though, we actually skipped over a really good scene though. We skipped over the part with Rudy, Eugene, and Patrick, yeah, because it was Horace and Sean in the house. But so at this point, they're kind of hanging out at this little diner, and of course, Rudy's in love and all that. But at this point, Pete the dog, that's their dog that's been kind of wandering around. We haven't talked much about him. Basically paws the Twinkie out of Eugene's hand as he's sitting by the edge of the water. And as it lands in the water, who should it be than the gill man pops out, grabs the Twinkie, and then waits for Eugene to run off.
Yeah. Like Eugene goes and is like, creature stole my Twinkie.
Right.
Like Eugene just has these great sort of like non sequitur lines that don't make any sense, or they make sense, but they kind of don't. And he's a really fun character.
Right. Earlier he mentions that the mummy was at his house.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he says. He doesn't explain anything. Just Monster Trap was at my house.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, so going back to the 3-way, Wolfman, brides, and Dracula.
Yeah, so then like Sean manages to pull the arm of the statue. It like twists down, and they fall through a trap door. So yes, the Hardy Boys angle was right, and somehow this house just happens to have a secret trap door. They fall down into the basement where the amulet is.
Well, not only that, but apparently the Confederate soldier, his skeleton is down there in full battle regalia.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. But.
Right. Did he get buried in his own house? Did his family kill him and then just throw him in the basement? What happened there?
Yeah.
But anyway, as you said, Sean finds the amulet. But not only that, Dracula grabs this kid by the throat.
Yeah.
It's like he is going to break this kid's neck.
But thankfully, Horace is resourceful, and this is where, like, if you want to go into, like, the fat kid thing that he's got, like, food with him all the time, it works out in everyone's favor at this point because he has a slice of pizza with him that he just slaps up against Dracula's face.
Because it has garlic. Yeah. It burns.
So while Dracula's fighting with a slice of pizza, they run away.
Well, Horace, man, you really gave Dracula a case of pizza face. But yeah, the kids are safe for now.
And they manage to get outside, and once they get out there, it turns out that Rudy and Patrick's sister have arrived in a Jeep with Scary German Guy because they all kind of got nervous. It was taking too long, and they were supposed to meet up.
Right. It's getting close to midnight, right?
Yeah. So they kind of, like, they take off, and they've got this plan. They're going to go to a church to do the ritual because, Dracula can't
Monsters
get to him in the church, so they'll be safe.
Yeah.
And then we get like a great sort of like set piece where the mummy jumps out and like grabs onto the back of the Jeep and is just like hanging onto the back as they're like speeding away, and they're trying to like he's trying to like climb up, and they're trying to like knock him off.
Swerve him off. Yeah. But Rudy's a genius because Rudy does the heavy lifting, as we all said. He's like, hey, give me some slack from the mummy's bandage. And Sean grabs it, gives it to him. He wraps it around an arrow and fires it into a tree that they're speeding past because Rudy is apparently amazing at everything, including archery.
Yeah.
And at this point, it starts to unravel the mummy.
And it looks so cool the way like he just it starts at his feet and just like slowly unravels him, and you just see like the bandage is coming off, but it's like dust and little bits of bone and sand, and it's just like it looks really, really cool. And then when he finally runs out of bandages, you just end up with like the mummy's skull sort of like bouncing down the road. Yeah,
that's so good. And it just stops. It's right side up to where it would be looking at you normally.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Like staring you right in the camera. It's
exactly
great. So yeah, one monster down. The kids have taken one off the board. Then Sean's dad and Rich, they're like speeding out to Shadowbrook.
Yeah, they're going to see what's up because someone called in and said they're going to kill your son. That someone being Larry Talbot that we mentioned earlier.
Oh yeah, there's I forgot about that. Like there's a great bit where like Dracula has the human Larry Talbot tied up, and because he can control the Wolfman because he's a monster, but like the human version, like he can't really exert his control, and somehow he gets loose and gets to a payphone and tries to warn people what's going on. Finally, some adults are listening, and they're like, okay, we got to get out there. And as they're headed that way, they see a hearse coming straight towards them, and then it just drives right through them.
Right. And at that point, it's like, well, we have to acknowledge that this is real
Some
now.
monstrous stuff is definitely happening. Which, like, Dracula can turn into mist, but I don't know how he has, like, a ghost car, but sure, like, yeah, it's cool, so let's go with it.
Yeah. Rule of cool, let's go with it.
And so Dracula ends up getting... he's headed to the house, so, like, he gets there and tosses some TNT into the treehouse.
Because he has some. He just has TNT laying around.
So, yeah, he blows up the treehouse, and then...
But he has a great line. He has one of the piece de resistance lines. As soon as he blows up the treehouse, because apparently he knew that they were a club, he goes, meeting adjourned. Come on. Good. Yeah.
But by that time, Del and Rich have turned around and gotten back to the house. And they see the treehouse blow up. So Del gets out of the car and is like pulling a gun on Dracula.
Yeah, fires into him.
And meanwhile Dracula just tosses some more TNT under the cop car, and
Rich is still there.
Yeah, so that it blows up, and Rich is gone. Like Rich does not make it out of this burning car. And because this is an 80s horror adjacent movie, of course, like if we're gonna have like one prominent death, it's gonna be the black character in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course Dracula's like, whatever, and then turns into a bat and flies off as Mom's walking out the door.
So then of course Mom knows stuff's going on too. So now we kind of have all the adults are sort of like in on what's going on. And so like they run inside, and the dad gets on like Sean's trusty walkie-talkie and is like trying to get a hold of Sean, and he happens to be have the other one, and is like hurry Dad, beat us at town square where we've got a plan or whatever. And so they jump in the car and take off. Meanwhile, the kids get to town square and the church is locked. So they're out of luck. They're just going to have to do the ritual out in the open and hope for the best.
Yep, we're doing this live.
Yeah.
So at this point, the scary German guy is trying to get Patrick's sister to start reading. And he's helping her because she really wasn't paying attention in German class.
Apparently not, yeah. She's having a lot of trouble. And he's basically like phonetically going line by line, and she's still having trouble. Right. And so while all this is going on, like, the monsters start showing up. Phoebe is the first to notice and points out that, like, the vampire brides are coming.
And because he is Rudy, Rudy puts in work and takes out 2 of them.
This is the Rudy's coolest moment. Like he just takes off towards them, and they're like, "Where are you going, Rudy?" And he's like, "I'm in the goddamn club, aren't I?" And sure enough, he is in the club. He is Monster Squad, numero uno. He
is the muscle for sure.
Yeah,
he's probably a little bit of the brains too, but that's So, but yeah, he takes out 2 of the brides.
Yeah, he shoots one with uses the bow and arrow and shoots a stake from a distance. And then before he can reload, the bride's up on him, but he manages to get another stake out of his quiver and just stab her with it.
Right. So by the way, that's 3 for Rudy right now. He's got 3 notches.
Yeah. At the same time, then we get more with the sister. She's still having trouble reading, and then Dracula shows up as a bat, and he's swooping down. And
right. He dive bombs Sean. He's whoosh.
And, so Sean's dad is not having that, and he shoots at the bat, and I guess,
he hits him a couple times.
Yeah, somehow, the bullets didn't seem to affect human form Dracula, but it's enough to...
Bat Dracula.
Yeah, it's enough to affect the trajectory of the bat, at least, and it crashes through a store window. Delg, goes to follow him, goes into the store to try to find him, and we get, a great sort of, stuck in mid-transition Dracula.
Yeah, it's weird and it's good.
Yeah, it looks
because
he's
got the fat almost rat-like belly but a human head. So he's a bat with a human head.
Oh yes.
You're right.
Yep, it's a nice callback.
Yep, exactly. But of course he's I'm not Dale. The dad is I'm not having this. So he grabs his own dynamite. And he gets ready to drop it on Dracula. However, he gets attacked by Wolfman from behind.
Yeah, and so quick thinking, he just shoves the dynamite into the Wolfman's pants, which thank God
and pushes
Wolfman
him
wears
out
pants.
the window.
yeah, shoves him out a window, and he just blows up in midair
into pieces.
Yeah, just
it's so good.
And that we'll see in a second. That's kind of a callback to one of the monster test questions.
The second way to kill a werewolf.
Yeah,
but not really.
So the sister kind of finally starts to finish reading the stuff, but nothing happens. The vortex isn't opening. Yeah. Nothing's going on, and
turns out, funny story.
Patrick's like, "You're not a virgin, are you?" And she just kind of shakes her head, and she's like, "Well, Steve."
It was with Steve. He doesn't count.
And he's like, "Doesn't count."
But that's when the Wolfman starts pulling himself back together again.
Yeah, the body parts just kind of start rolling and reforming. So that's when one of the monster questions was what's the 2 ways to kill a Wolfman, and it's silver bullets. And they keep trying to come up with what the second way is, and turns out that second way doesn't work so much. It's definitely just the silver bullets.
Because once again, Rudy pulls out a revolver because he's Rudy, and he before he does it, he goes bang because Rudy's a badass, and he shoots the Wolfman with silver bullets, killing him.
Yeah, and he collapses and sort of turns back into a human, and it's it's that moment that Larry Talbot's been waiting for since the
right.
Universal movies, and he thanks him, thank you for finally killing me. This is all I really wanted. Right. So again, another notch for Rudy. He's
4 in.
Yeah, but at this point we get the Gill Man coming out of the sewer. And
sewer, yes, that's the best part. Well, that's not the best part, but it's a great part having this Gillman just pop out of a manhole.
Yeah. And he just starts taking out cops like they're nothing. He's just throwing cops left and right. Clearly, he's not to be messed with. He ends up cornering Horace. He's just taking out all these cops. But then Horace is trapped up against a store window, and Horace looks behind him, and it's those 2 bullies from the beginning.
Well, he grabs a shotgun off one of the cops.
Yeah.
As he's running back to this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's EJ and the other guy, which we don't care about the other guy.
Yeah, and they won't let him in. They're locked up to protect themselves from the monsters.
Right. Because they're punks.
Yeah, and they're they're scared. They're not going to let Horace in because what if the Gill Man catches up to him and gets in before they can lock the door back? So
Horace has one choice.
Yeah, he's on his own, and he, fires and takes out the Gill Man.
Right. And of course, at that point, the idiots open the door, and they're like, "That was really cool, fat kid." And he racks the shotgun one more time and says, "My name's Horace."
Yeah.
Click, click.
Yeah. So, it pays off. Like the fat kid thing, like it pays off in this moment because like he gets his like badass moment and he gets to dictate like, this is my name and don't fuck with me, and like it's great.
By the way, Horace is the second Monster Squad member to rack up a kill.
Yeah.
So we've got 4 for Rudy, 1 for Horace.
Yeah.
At this point, Eugene also points out, "Hey, isn't Phoebe one of those virgin things?"
Yep, and so that's pretty much Eugene's sort of contribution, because somehow it never crossed anybody's mind. Like, we need a female virgin, and like Phoebe is like a kindergartner. So yes, thank goodness. Phoebe.
Maybe it's a good thing that nobody. Also, why couldn't any of the boys? Because I'm pretty sure most of them are virgins as well.
Yeah,
but
I
guess
know,
it had to be a girl.
Yeah, I guess so, because it was a girl with Van Helsing. I don't know. It's the pure virgin thing always seems to be. Because we value like female purity and patriarchy, blah blah blah. But yeah, so
exactly. Dracula shows up, but he has lightning powers now.
Yeah, he's got that the Emperor Palpatine kind of thing going on,
right? And he is dropping cops even more than the Gill Man.
Yeah,
like, cops run up and try to stop him. He just breaks arms, breaks necks, drops them. Like he is mass murdering police officers.
Yeah, like they're just ragdolls. And so Phoebe and Scary German Guy are doing their best. They're trying to get through the ritual as quick as they can, and
Phoebe's doing so much better than the sister.
Yeah, Phoebe, she's on top of things, but Dracula does get to them before they can finish, and like knocks down Scary German Guy and picks up Phoebe and is like, "Give me the amulet, you bitch."
Right. Which is a harsh thing to say to a little girl, but okay.
Yeah. But this is when Dracula finds out that Frankenstein has switched teams, and where the Monster Squad finds out that Frankenstein made it out of the Shadowbrook Lane. Okay,
Frank's back, baby.
Yeah, so he knocks Dracula down and is just like, bogus.
Right.
And like throws him into like a spiked fence.
Fence post. Yeah.
So Dracula is impaled for the moment on a fence.
Yep. So at this point, the scary old guy gets up and is like, "All right, Phoebe, we got to finish this." They do, and then the amulet starts like cycling through all kinds of different colors, because initially it was red, then at a point it was green, and then white, and then it goes through all that, and then our portal opens up and starts sucking everything in, a la Evil Dead.
Yeah. And like Phoebe and Frankenstein are like holding hands as it's like army or like police cars, like stuff just starts getting like sucked in, benches and everything. And Dracula starts to get sucked in, and he grabs onto Sean as he's being pulled.
Yeah, he's not going to go down without taking one of the Monster Squad with him, right?
Yeah.
But turns out Sean's got a stake too.
Yeah. So Sean stakes Dracula, and Dracula, lets go and starts getting pulled in. And then Van Helsing comes strolling out of the vortex. Everything else is getting sucked in and just can't be controlled at all. But somehow Van Helsing's able to just walk out of there like it's nothing. And he grabs Dracula.
Gives the kids a thumbs up because he knew what that was.
Yeah. So Dracula's gone, and all the rest of the monsters are dead. Like the Monster Squad took everybody out. So we've only got the only monster left is Frankenstein, and he's starting to be pulled in as well. And Phoebe's like holding on to a bench and holding on to Frankenstein, and she's like not gonna let go. She's
no, don't let go.
Yeah, and it's such a sweet. Again, we had like the Maria scene with her at the lake, and like this is what we wanted. Like Frankenstein and the little girl to actually connect and like protect each other, and they've become friends, and it's this really sweet moment. And she's like, crying, like, "Don't go away, Frankenstein." And like, you have this moment of realization where Frankenstein knows, like, if I don't let go, I'm taking her with me, and I'm not going to do that. So he lets go and says, "Bye, Phoebe," and like, starts to get pulled towards the vortex. And Phoebe, this gets to me I have watched this movie probably at least 50 times, and I cry at this part every time, and I'm just talking about it right now, and I'm like shaking. It gets me But like, so Phoebe, she sees him being pulled in, and she lets go of Scraps, her bunny rabbit, which flies into Frankenstein's arms, and he's pulled into the vortex, and it closes behind him, and all the monsters are gone. And yeah, it kills me. It's so upsetting because like he had the moment that we wanted for him, and then it's taken away. But they wanted to give us this emotional like moment that just tears you up, and of course Frankenstein's still a monster, so he's got to go into the monster vortex, and it makes sense.
But he's a good monster.
But yeah, it's tough. So
now with the town nearly fully destroyed. The army rolls in.
Yeah.
Turns out they got the letter from Eugene.
They just showed up like, a little late to the party.
Right, yeah. They're like, who's Eugene? And, of course, little Eugene with his Confederate cap walks up to him and goes, Mummy came in my house. Because, yep, sure did.
Yeah.
And our boy Sean drops his Monster Squad card on the general or commander. And that's when we get the rap starting up.
Yeah, it's so because the army's like, can somebody tell us what's going on here? And he's like, we got this. We can tell you what's up. Hands in the card, and he's like, we're the Monster Squad. And then yeah, you got the hip hop beat kick in, and we cut to credits, and you get like basically rappers describing the plot of the movie beat by beat.
Right. By the way, the name of the band is the Monster Squad, formed just for this movie.
Yeah, so it's just some studio musician group that wrote this song just for that. And this was such a staple of like 80s movies. Oh, you just have to have like the rap that tells the whole plot, and yeah, they're always just so much fun.
Yeah, and this movie is just so good. All together, it's a classic for a reason.
Yeah, and like we said, there's those couple sort of problematic things, but like obviously this movie has had staying power in spite of those things because it's just so good.
Now, I do have to say this: I've noticed something throughout rewatching this, and I'm not sure it's possible, but I feel like this entire movie is low key a Castlevania movie.
Huh?
Okay. All right, let me break this down for you. There are several key points where I was like, "Oh, that's a Castlevania move. That's a Castlevania thing that happened." Okay, first off, Dracula. Yes, Dracula always looks like This Dracula looks like all the Draculas, especially the one that's in the original Castlevania, right?
Okay.
But also the Wolfman design. Don't get me wrong. A lot of this is just because Castlevania also just stole everything from old Universal stuff. Mm-hmm. But what really kicked it off for me was at the end scene where Dracula hits the old man with that beam.
Oh, yeah.
That's a hellfire. That's a fucking hellfire shot. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Like, that is a move that you see in every single Castlevania when you're fighting Dracula. And this movie came out basically a year or maybe a few months after the original Castlevania dropped in 1986.
Huh, okay.
So I'm like, was this inspired by Castlevania? It might have been. Yeah. And also the part where Dracula turns to mist. That's also kind of a thing that always happens with all Dracula things, is he's turned into mist in the plane, and then the bat. I'm like, well, obviously that's mist form, if you played Symphony of the Night, and bat form from Symphony of the Night.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah, that.
These are tropes, but I think low key this was inspired by Castlevania.
It could be. And this is a movie that's kind of like, I think it's really gotten a lot more attention in recent years. It bombed hard at the box office. Like the guys who made this, Fred Dekker and Shane Black, like basically didn't really make many more. Like this movie basically like dropped them off the map of Hollywood. Like I think they made the movie Night of the Creeps before this, and then that's pretty much it. And I think Fred Dekker like really took it personally. Like I think he put a lot into this movie, and was really upset that it didn't get the attention that it deserved. I kind of feel like maybe the Goonies might be a little bit responsible for that, because there are some similarities between the two.
Yeah. You had Horace and what was the kid who did the Truffle Shuffle?
Chunk.
Is
it just Chunk? But yeah, like it's kids on an adventure, and like that they came out, close to each other in time, And I definitely could see where people might be just like, oh, this is just the Goonies again, but with monsters. But it's really so much more than that.
Now, we can't say that Shane Black hasn't done much, because he's done a lot. Like Lethal Weapon, all the Lethal Weapon movies just about.
Yeah,
But,
I think it's more Fred Dekker.
definitely.
Like, I think Shane Black wrote it and Fred Dekker directed it, and I think he was just kind of like, I'm done, I don't think Night of the Creeps got a ton of attention either, and then this one, he really, like, he was all in on this, and was just like, I can't keep doing this. And I think, like, when Monster Squad started to kind of get, like, a cult following, he was sort of like, he didn't really believe it at first. He was just like, no, I think, like, in more recent years, as, like, I think a lot of the cast has gotten together and done conventions, appearances and stuff, and he was really slow to kind of get on board with that. But I think he's finally kind of like ready to sort of embrace the movie. We were talking at the beginning that, like, Andre Gower directed a documentary called Wolfman's Got Nards, and Fred Dekker's in it quite a bit, and like they kind of. It's a really nice sort of reunion. It might be something that we cover at some point, just because it's just sort of nice seeing all the cast as they've grown up and sort of seeing that this movie that they made when they were younger that kind of ended a lot of their careers in a way, like that it means so much to so many people.
I mean, yeah, I think one of the major actors is only other major actor in this is basically Tom Noonan, who went to work with, I think, Fred Dekker on or not Fred Dekker, Shane Black on Last Action Hero.
Okay.
So I mean, where he played I'm trying to remember the guy with the axe. I don't remember exactly his name. Let's see.
And yeah, he's just one of those like character actors. He's been in tons and tons of stuff. Like
yeah, he played Ripper in Last Action Hero.
Yeah.
So if you've seen that,
Yeah. And like he was in like RoboCop 2 and I think recently he was in like that 12 Monkeys TV series. So yeah, he's one of those guys that like when you see him, you're like, I know that guy. What's he in? And then you pull up IMDb and you're like, oh, he's in like everything. Okay, I got
everything. Yeah. Yep. But he's not a high key actor, but he's still a good one.
Yes.
We didn't get in this.
What's that?
We didn't get a science wheel or a dynamo. So that hurts personally. And 2, we didn't get an abrupt ending. We actually got denouement, resolution, all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, this movie wraps up. You couldn't ask for a better conclusion. Like, between like the emotional moment with Frankenstein and Phoebe, and then you get like the army showing up to kind of cap things off, and you get like the badass moment where they all get to be like, we're the Monster Squad, and like freeze frame on like how cool they are, and then then the wrap. Like you can't do better than that.
Nope, you can't. So yeah, that's it for the Monster Squad. I feel like I'm going to keep revisiting this because I am a child of the 80s effectively, and this is just such a damn good movie.
It is. It's one of those comfort movies. Like if I've got like I'm homesick, it's one of the movies I'm most likely to put on and just watch while I'm like half out of it on cold medicine or whatever. It's right. Just it. But like I watched it this week like. Fully alert with taking notes, and it holds up. Like it's good however you come to it.
Yep. There's a couple bumps here and there, but as long as you can overlook those, this is free. This is a good movie.
Yes.
Just all the way around.
Highly agree.
All right. So other than that, you can find us at the Frankencast at Twitter and on YouTube. Basically all the socials. If you see us there, if you give us a listen on Spotify, on YouTube, give us some type of interaction. I know a lot of people say that, but basically it tells the algorithms that we're worth listening to and we're worth, you spending your time on.
Yeah. So we definitely appreciate all of that kind of stuff. Sharing with friends helps too, obviously. Well, I think, word of mouth is how we've gotten most of the listeners we currently have. And, as the listenership sort of expands, we've been talking about Patreon in the near future. So the more people show up, the more stuff we can do. Like we're going to start doing all kinds of fun, bonus episodes, and we got a lot of plans in the works.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of plans. We don't have a lot of monetary backup, but if once we get that running, anything you can do to help, that'd be great too.
Yeah,
even just a like. That's fine.
Yeah, so that does it for this week. And next week, we will be talking about a movie that just recently has gotten a lot of attention because it got a really fancy deluxe reissue from Vinegar Syndrome. And it also got I think it just dropped on Shudder as well. So I think people are kind of rediscovering it right now. And that's Flesh for Frankenstein, also known as Andy Warhol's Frankenstein.
Yep. So that'll be exciting. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's one that I have not seen in a very, very long time. It's a weird one, so it'll be a lot of fun.
I mean, it's Andy Warhol, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, in that case, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.